We begin today's show in Nagorno-Karabakh, where the president of the self-declared republic at the center of a decades-long dispute between Azerbaijan and Armenia announced this week the government will dissolve itself by January 1st. This comes just days after Azerbaijan carried out a military blitz to seize the territory, which is mostly made up of ethnic Armenians after a 35-year fight for political autonomy. Hundreds were killed in the attack. Now Armenian officials report more than half of Nagorno-Karabakh's 120,000 residents have fled to Armenia. Thousands remain without food, shelter, and clean sources of drinking water. This is one of the refugees speaking from Goris, Armenia.
We don't know what happens to us next. We don't know what the government has in store for us. There is not a single chance to go back. If there were chances, we would not leave in the first place. It is very dangerous there.
In response to the worsening crisis, Samantha Power, head of USAID, said the U.S. would provide $11.5 million in aid and urged Azerbaijan to facilitate access to humanitarian workers. Armenia has warned of an ethnic cleansing campaign in the contested region. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, Azerbaijan arrested the former head of the Nagorno-Karabakh government as he was trying to cross into Armenia. For more, we're joined by Roubina Margossian, managing editor with EVN Report, an independent media outlet based in Armenia. She reported from Nagorno-Karabakh during the 2020 war. She's joining us from Yerevan, Armenia's capital. Welcome back to Democracy Now!, Roubina. Can you talk about exactly what's happening and for a global audience to explain the historical context as well?
Well, that's a big question. That's a question that goes back so long, and I'll try my best. But let me start with what's happening today. Blatantly, this is ethnic cleansing. If we listen to the numbers of people leaving Nagorno-Karabakh, their homeland, their centuries-old homeland. It was 78,000 people last night at 10 p.m. At 10 a.m., 88,000 people have left. So 10,000 in 12 hours. These are people who are just leaving everything behind, getting out in any means possible, even in cars that are not functional. Why is this happening is basically the question that we're going to try to answer, but there's no one and short answer. This is, however, happening after 10 months of these people being starving, being in a blockade, being threatened, their lives constantly under threat. This is happening after they've been held hostage by Azerbaijan, and all of a sudden they're told they can leave or reintegrate into Azerbaijan. It's like the Azerbaijani former term, reintegrate after being attacked. And on the 19th of September, Azerbaijan, as you called it, organized a Blitz attack, calling it an anti-terrorist measure. Which very much sounds like Russia's special operation in Ukraine. So after Azerbaijan's special operation in Nagorno-Karabakh, hundreds of civilians died. And now these people have no option they have no options. If they want to survive, they have to leave. And they are leaving, and the assumption is after a couple of days, there will be not a single Armenian left in Artsakh. Whoever's left will probably be arrested. As we saw with Ruben Vartanyan's case, he was arrested at the Chakfot and Lachin corridor. Reuters has reported that Azerbaijan has extensive blacklists of people they want to arrest. And what charges? No one really is sure of. Made up charges. So this is the situation right now on the ground. People are fleeing for their lives because time and again they know there's no surviving Azerbaijan. As for historically,
let me first ask you about the significance of the head of Nagorno-Karabakh saying that the area that Nagorno-Karabakh, as it's known now, will cease to exist by the end of the year, and the fact that he's been arrested trying to get into Armenia?
Well, we don't know that he himself has been arrested. That is not a confirmed news. That's not confirmed news. We actually do not have news of from Stepanakert altogether. The very few independent journalists that were left there reporting on the situation have already left. So effectively, we have no communication with Nagorno-Karabakh. Those who are still there, some officials that we have no news about. We don't know if they're there, if they've managed to get out. We are not hearing from them, and there's nothing confirmed at this point. As for your question was with the government being dissolved, is that the question?
Yes.
Well, they have until January 1st to do this. But this is not so much about whether or not a republic that no one recognized is still going to exist or not, whether or not those institutions that for over 32 years people have built, whether or not a democracy that could have been and was, and a more established democracy than Azerbaijan, and this is not just me saying, this is every human rights report ever saying that even elections in Nagorno-Karabakh were more free and fair than elections have ever been in Azerbaijan. So it's basically this democracy dying. If you want a kind of an explanation of what's happening. Otherwise, Nagorno-Karabakh was never recognized by anyone. And if it ceased to exist, that means technically nothing other than a humanitarian disaster, the death of a possible democracy, happening democracy, and also just a human rights failure all over the place from any perspective, from perspective of contemporary human rights and from a historical perspective.
So
this is a humanitarian failure.
Over the weekend, Armenia asked the United Nations for help monitoring the rights of ethnic Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh, arguing they face the prospect of ethnic cleansing. Armenia's prime minister said he needed guarantees from Azerbaijan that civilians would be protected. This is what he said.
Unless real living conditions are created for the Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh in their homes and effective mechanisms of protection from ethnic cleansing, then the likelihood that the Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh will see exile from their homeland as the only way to preserve their lives and identity increases significantly.
So is that happening? And Roubina, you are just back from Goris, where many refugees are coming. Describe what you found.
It has happened. It's almost done happening. And it's not just last week that Armenia was warning about this. Armenia has warning about this for years, and at least for 10 months. This is we had 3 UN Security Council sessions. But as we know, and as the whole situation has demonstrated, by acting like this, Azerbaijan has effectively demonstrated that the highest platforms of humanitarian law, the highest platforms of the world, the foreign ministries of dozens and dozens of countries, their word means nothing. Their resolutions will amount to not much. They basically, as Azerbaijan has demonstrated with what is happening right now, that these platforms, these countries even, their foreign ministries are bankrupt, and especially anything they say is null and void of any effect. And I would say this is great news for any perpetrator regime in the world, and which we see happening and all over the place. This is the victory of a dictatorship over democracy, and this is a dictatorship that has already also targeted Armenia. What is happening now on the border, what was happening is in Goris. These are people passed a less than 2 hour drive in 36 hours. These are people who just came with whatever they had, whatever they could pack with, whatever means they could. These are people who were just cramped in the back of pickup trucks, in the back of trucks that are used for cattle just to make it. They sat on a corridor under enemy supervision for 36 hours with no communication. Now they're arriving in Armenia. What's the situation here? They have the government is there. There's several humanitarian access points where they're given all the help and they're given direction as to where to go. They're given directions as to how to get lodging where, and they're promised also kind of a livelihood and effectively jobs eventually. But these people, Amy, what I can tell you, are terrified. They just survived, and I would not call them anything else than genocide survivors. And this is a very heavy word for any Armenian to use. And now they're being asked, well, where do you want to live? And they say nowhere on the border because we cannot face the same enemy over and over again. And as you know, Armenia, basically most of its borders are with Azerbaijan and Turkey. Stretches and stretches. There's no place in Armenia, technically speaking, that is not a border. If you're sitting in Yerevan and you're looking at Mount Ararat, that's Turkey. And if people are saying that we do not want to go to any border communities because we just can't bear. And there's it's just any other humanitarian disaster. And I was listening to your introduction. The world is full of them. The world has failed this over and over again in this respect. And yes, Samantha Power was here, and the U.S. promised $11.5 million in assistance. And I don't understand this term humanitarian access to where? To a place where there are no longer people? To a place where, as Aliyev announced today, that already kind of 2,300 Azerbaijanis have moved into the homes that are still probably warm from the Armenians that were there. So, and this is one kind of disaster the world can easily forgive itself for its failures, because these people are coming to Armenia as Armenian citizens, as Armenians. They will not be knocking on European doors. They will not be camped anywhere. They will be living with their own, and it will not be a sore sight for the world to see for decades. It would not be like Shatila, like in Lebanon with the Palestinians.
Roubina,
so
you see this.
Yes?
You've said you see this as a proxy war with Turkey and Israel on one side, and Turkey and Israel are. Explain the role of Turkey, Israel, Russia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan.
It's pretty clear, actually. Let's start with Israel. Israel has been kind of a military partner for Azerbaijan even before this latest, before September 19, when the attack started on Nagorno-Karabakh. We were reporting about the increased flights from Israel, that with military equipment coming, with more, consolidation on the borders, and this is coming from Israel. The same thing had happened in 2020 when the amount of flights from Israel to Azerbaijan were indescribable. Well, as for Turkey, there's not much to say. It's as they call themselves. One nation, two countries. Turkey, blatantly partner for Azerbaijan. Turkey has always been very vocal about its support for Azerbaijan. Turkey is also very vocal about its support. Turkey coordinated its normalization process with Armenia through Azerbaijan. So there was
you have Turkey and Israel.
Right,
you have Turkey and Israel supporting Azerbaijan, and Russia has a mutual defense pact with Armenia. Where do you see this going? What do you think would lead to a lasting and just negotiated peace, Roubina, in this last minute we have?
I think the just negotiated peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan, if that's the question. The Karabakh conflict was a big part of this negotiation piece, which is constantly being dragged into the peace discussions. The thing is, it's more than clear that Russia has, as political scientists have said, abdicated its duties towards Armenia time and again, and is now effectively, these are my words, punishing Armenia for its Western pivot, with basically abdicating all. This humanitarian crisis in Artsakh would have been and should have been prevented, if not for the failure of the Russian peacekeeping mission. This is through the watchful eye and helpful hand of the Russian peacekeeping mission and the Russian Federation that this has happened at this time, like the way it has happened, because Russia is growing increasingly dissatisfied and concerned with Armenia's Western pivot and Western presence in Armenia to start with. Also, this is in regards to the UN monitoring mission on Armenia's border. So Russia is losing Armenia, and therefore, if Armenia loses Artsakh, which has fought for and died for 3 decades now, maybe Armenia would come to its senses